Do. All right, we are now live and in concert. And that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen, because that's what I'm here to do, be in concert. So I turned 50 last week, and that was something that happened. Fuck. Let me tell you something. You go up to northern Minnesota and you spend it with a woman that's also her birthday, and then you go skinny dipping in an iron ore pit about midnight, and it's cold. Yeah, now we're talking some big things happen, some big things that are going to carry on into the future. And that's what it's all about. I mean, if you ain't living a life of high adventure, just what are you doing? Hmm? So here's my thing that's come up out of all of that. See, my approach to the lore has always been, okay, here's a bunch of writing, here's a body of literature, some work. It's been around for several thousand years, finally put down about 1,000 years ago, and we're still looking at it. Okay. And there's another school of thought that says, well, it really means this, and there's the academic approach to all of it. And it's interesting, to be sure, and it gives us some insight into certain aspects of it. But that's not why it's still being read. Not by a damn stretch of the imagination is that why it's still being looked at. So whenever you see that kind of stuff laying around, and it's still, see, because you can't tell me what the New York Times bestseller was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Well, shit, 10 years, probably Harry Potter, but you know what I mean. And there's a reason it was Harry Potter too, just like it was Star Wars before that, because there's an element of something in that story that resonates within us. And it's not about figuring out what a word means. It's not about figuring out, well, this, I really think that there's a reason that stuff, because I don't care what mythology you look at, there are constants of human thought and experience across the board. And people always want to argue with me about it. But I'm a Virgo. I'm usually right. Nah. So here's the real deal. Whenever someone changes their mind, and you're forced to relate to them in a different way, everybody's ass gets chapped every single time. Because, well, now they don't know how to relate to you. Now they don't know what games to play. Now they don't understand what the dynamics are. And you know what happens in that instant? And it's always telling who the legitimate individuals in your life are when this occurs. Some individual will step up to the plate and allow this change and begin to grow with you and begin to understand, okay, this is a different individual. He's got a new train of thought now. He's made a change for the better about who he is, what he's going to do, how he's going to move forward in this world. I value this individual in my life. Perhaps I'll do the same thing. 9 times out of fucking 10, though, what happens is he's being an ass. He's not acting right. He's doing things I can't relate to. I don't feel as important in his world anymore, or her world. Then you get then what happens is, well, I'll just talk shit about him. I will sit here and not change anything about myself. And instead of taking any action to become something better, I'll just run my mouth. A little polite character assassination, and I can boost my ego without ever having to change anything about myself. And I can make him the bad guy, and I can keep going on and play a little bit of victim nonsense and go from there. Now, that story resonates with us because it pisses a lot of people off, because that's how they negotiate the entirety of their lives. All of the people in their past. Sometimes you grow and people fall away. And sometimes they stick around because they're real friends. What's that look like in our lore? I'll tell you what it looks like. When Loki, as the uninspired human intellect, and don't argue with me about what you think you know about this character, because more than likely I'm going to look at it, listen to you, and say, well, that's pretty much horseshit. This is the uninspired human intellect. This is the ego on full tilt. This is the individual that has a plate at the seat of the table, but is not willing to measure up to the standards of all of the other individuals at the table. Not willing to put in the hard work. There's always some kind of sneaky, backbiting, deceitful nonsense going on, instead of actually doing the hard work of personal growth, development, measuring up. Oh, but he's essential. Is it? So let's say you do something at work and you're getting all of the praise, and the guy standing over there at the water cooler, he's resentful because he can't do what you can do. And he starts running his soup coolers to this person and that person, and they also didn't quite measure up. And well, he kind of cheated, or well, she slept her way to the top, or she really doesn't know what she's doing, or the boss has a crush on her, or he's doing this, or he's kissing ass, or it's always that kind of polite character assassination that comes from that water cooler gossip. Well, it's really harmful. It doesn't really mean anything. You see, what it does is it allows those people that, they didn't want to try harder. They didn't want to really put in the effort to sit there and talk about themselves, talk about the other person. They can feel better about being first place losers and not have to change a single thing about themselves. And this is exactly what Loki did when he gave Hoder an arrow with mistletoe to kill Balder. Instead of trying to measure up, instead of trying to grab a hold of his own heritage and be a champion in his own right and measure up like Tyr did, like Thor did, like Uller, Heimdall, all the other gods and goddesses did, he's going to take a shot and he's going to rob the sun from somebody's world. Now, there's a benefit to all of that. More than likely, Odin knew all about it. And he has done a lot of hard work on his own. And people want to discredit that too. When you do that, it demonstrates to me a misunderstanding of the interaction of the divine together. And I don't really subscribe to it. This is the chief deity that we're supposed to be honoring. Why would we be doing things to denigrate that status? Because we found another way? Or did we find a way that allowed us to think we might be a little bit better than that? When we attempt to put those kinds of human ideas and emotions into things other than what I'm talking about, we have to be very careful what we're thinking and talking and doing. That story is in the lore, and many others just like it, because it is a failing that is common among men. When somebody makes a change and decides to do something better, and it might be something as simple as getting a better job, or finding someone better to love, or building a family with someone else, other people get a case of the ass about it because they're not sure how they're going to fit into it. And all of a sudden, they feel like, well, I won't be as important. Oh? Where'd that thought come from? Who told you to think that way? Who taught you to think that because somebody changes their mind about something that you aren't every bit as important as you were before? Granted, the priorities may shift. Do you want to measure up and earn a seat at the table of somebody in your life? Or do you want to sacrifice it all because, well, I'm not sure how to relate to it anymore? These stories that are in our lore are here because they contain valuable lessons about this human experience that we're all having. We're not bodies that have a soul. We're souls in possession of a body. And there's a temporary time here that we're supposed to learn some things. Who knows how long it is for anybody? There's some stuff here for us to figure out. And every life that we live, every path that each one of us are on, there's going to be some painful shit that's going to kick us, because I'm telling you right now, life is hard. And it's even harder when you're trying to do it by yourself. If you happen to stumble across somebody in this world that allows you to take another couple steps in a positive direction, supporting you and encouraging you, you better figure it out. You better stick with them. Because I promise you, life is tough when you're out there trying to do it by yourself. And when you come across people that resent that action or that attempts to improve, that makes me question the value of everything that's been said before. If somebody wants to move up in the world, who am I to stop them from trying that? Who am I to say, no, you don't need to go learn that lesson? Let me tell you why. Because I feel like I need to be more important in your life. It may not always be that way. They may need to go learn something very painful, and you're going to have to stand there and watch friends suffer. But a friend is not determining the value of who they are based on their actions. And yet we do it all the time. We want to believe that that's the kind of nonsense that makes us valuable because somebody else says that I'm important in the world. Until you figure out that the value of who you are originates right here and nowhere else, you're going to continually be bouncing between problem and problem and problem because somebody said this or somebody said that or they acted this way or they acted that way. In all of that, where are you going to figure out how you're supposed to move forward? Where are you going to figure out which step you need to take because you need to value you? When are you going to be able to reach out your hand and take the hand of someone that says, let's jump in this motherfucker together? I can promise you, you might find someone to dally with for a little while. But when the going gets tough, my daddy always said, when the money walks out the door, love flies out the window. Yeah, I can promise you that is a reality. These stories in this lore are here because, like I said, they resonate with us. When Loki's standing at the edge of the crowd, whispering in blind Hodor's ear, the guy that didn't quite measure up, and telling him to take a shot, think about all of the interactions you see among people on social media. Somebody's whispering in the ear, sending a private message, that guy's really a dick. Oh, how so? Because he doesn't subscribe to your fucking fantasy? Because he doesn't make you feel like you're important? Because he doesn't allow you? Since when is somebody on social media supposed to allow me to do anything? Since when is somebody on social media supposed to be the one that makes you feel important? How did we allow that to happen? Because it's far easier to stand at the edge of the crowd and talk shit about the guy doing something than to actually get up and try to measure up. My contemporaries across the board are enjoying unmitigated success because they do not subscribe to that nonsense. They encourage other men and other women to stand up and be who they're supposed to become in all different ways. Those are the people that are enjoying true success. Not the guy over here talking, well, he really doesn't get it. He's just trying to build himself. He's not really serving the folk. That's the kind of shit you get from a coward that doesn't want to try. What if I fail? So, fail forward. Try it again. Well, what if it doesn't work out? So, learn from it. Pick it up. Try it. Well, that's a little too painful. Okay, so now you're a coward all the way around. A lot of people aren't going to like what I'm saying. They'll fall back on maybe the academic approach. Well, that's really not what that means. Bullshit. Wrong answer. That is exactly what it means. So when we look at all of our lore and we see all of these stories told to us again and again and again, and then we look over here at the Greeks and they're saying the same thing. And then, well, hey, let's look at the Slavs. They're saying this I can find the same story over here. We look at the Native American mythology. There it is again. There are constants throughout all of the higher concepts of mythological thought that remain true. No matter where in the world you are, no matter what variation of the human experience you might be dealing with, there's wisdom to be found in it. Ours resonates with us because it has the unique attributes of a culture that are most palatable to us to understand. Well, how about we start trying to understand that so we can move forward in the world instead of sitting around slinging shit at each other on social media because somebody decided to do something that, well, that doesn't really buy into my fantasy anymore. And I think I'll just talk shit about them instead of really measuring up. It's not just in this kind of scenario. People do it all over the place. They pass judgment. Well, you're not really, you've got such a sordid past. I don't know how you could really ever do that. That's, people have said this and people have said that, and you did this once, and that's, that means they're not worthy. That means they're not capable. No, all that means is you found a weakness or some bullshit in the past, so you might sit there and talk nonsense about it so you can, well, feel a little bit better about yourself. I don't think much of those people. And today, now that I am 50, I think even less of them. And I think that's probably how it's all going to proceed forward. Some people got to grow up and quit talking shit about other people and start living their own life, or they're never going to get anywhere other than being exactly where they are. And you know what happens to those people that get stuck in the mud? They get left behind and they become resentful. Let's use the tree of Yggdrasil for an example. Yggdrasil has its roots and they're watered every day. And all that water moves up through the trunk, through all of these biological processes. And occasionally you get an imperfection in the wood and it forms this great burl or a knot. Now, the rest of the water is moving up through the tree, out through the leaves, through evaporation, and it becomes oxygen and it changes into something great that other creatures get to use to survive. An amazing process when you think about it. And we're the same way. We're moving through this life, through all of these various processes, much of which we don't fucking understand, and we're doing our best. And somewhere along the way, when you look at people, you'll see where they get stuck. And their lives become great knots of nonsense. Just like a burl on a piece of wood. That's where they're stuck. That's where they stay. Do you want to be that? Do you want to be the perpetual victim? Do you want to be the person that completely doesn't understand anything than a thought process that makes you feel good about yourself without ever having to do anything? That's the entirety of the lesson of Loki. He is stuck in one spot. In fact, he's bound with the entrails of his son. And the woman that loves him, she suffers because he blames her whenever the poison hits his face. And it was his own fault. I see that happening a lot too. The depth of this lore extends far beyond just the superficial academic readings that we sometimes think to be so valuable. There's a path here and an answer for almost every situation we might come across, if we have the wisdom to see it, if we have the openness of heart to understand, if we have the courage to take action, even if it fucking seems like it might be the craziest thing you've ever done. You might find or witness the most amazing, awesome person doing something that is just mind-bogglingly, stunningly beautiful and fucking amazing. Why would you shortchange yourself of that because you're scared? Let's try a little harder. And let's start taking a look at what it means to be something other than just somebody that points out other people's flaws. Now that I'm 50 and that whole weekend, which was a big doozy of a weekend, it was amazing beyond words, is over. I'm going to get back into this and we're going to give it hell and we're going to redouble our efforts on taking action to not be that way. And when you hear them talk about me, understand it's because they can't keep up.